can work on other projects in their own time as long as they follow federal ethics rules.
All right.
Trish?
Rich Edson, thank you so much. As we await responses to these new and lingering questions over the Clinton Foundation, there are now growing concerns tonight over whether Hillary Clinton will ever give the American people any answers at all. Because the last time Mrs. Clinton held a traditional news conference, how do you like this? December 4th, 2015. That was 252 days ago. One reporter going so far as to say, she is the least accessible presidential nominee in modern times. David Wohl is an attorney and Trump supporter, and Alan Combs is host of the Alan Combs Show. David, what's she so afraid of?
Well, I mean, Trish, granted, she doesn't speak too well off teleprompter, and she doesn't tend to ad-lib too well, but she has issues that transcend politics. She has serious Fifth Amendment issues. I mean, it's been scandal after scandal. First, the email server scandal, then the perjuring herself at Benghazi scandal. Now these 44 emails indicate that her chief of staff, and don't tell me it wasn't at her direction, engaged in beneficial activities for fat cat donors to the Clinton Foundation, basically in total violation of ethical standards. And in my estimation, this could be public corruption, criminal charges. So if I'm advising Hillary Clinton, I'm going to tell her, you know what? You're not going to do any press conferences, because if you give the wrong answer to one of these questions that are no doubt forthcoming, you could be handcuffed the next day.
Yeah,
it's that serious.
Not to mention, she's not, as you said earlier, the most natural in those situations with those press conferences. Alan,
right.
I gotta say, this stuff just doesn't look good. The appearance of it sure doesn't feel good. Your thoughts?
Well, it may not feel good to you. David, you just
It shouldn't feel good to anyone. I mean, I don't want a member of my government, taking payouts.
Well, there's no evidence
so
of that. That's not been
well,
proven.
all right, let me jump in, and you'll get a chance. But one thing that really I have found issue with, and again, I come from a financial background, UBS, United Bank of Switzerland, they tried to get a bunch of their clients off the hook because the IRS was looking into whether or not these people were committing some kind of tax evasion. About 55,000 clients. And so they went to Hillary Clinton and the State Department. And guess what? She got them off the hook. It turned out only 4,500 of them had to be investigated by the IRS. So that was a good deal. And then what do you know? The biggest speaking fee of Bill Clinton's year? $1.5 million in speaking fees he collected from the United Bank of Switzerland after this whole thing goes through. Alan, I just look at that and I say, couldn't she have said, hey, hon, maybe sit this one out. You're making enough money already. I'm doing a deal with them on the side. Again, it speaks to this inherent conflict of interest that seemed to be happening now.
Again, there's no evidence that there's any quid pro quo here. Cheryl Mills, who was just mentioned, was on her own time. That's already been proven. David, you accused,
Alan.
if I could please finish the thought. David, you just accused Hillary Clinton of perjury. She's not been indicted. She's not been convicted. You're putting out false information.
Jim Comey came out at his press conference and says, yes, she did lie about the email information at the Benghazi hearings. He said she did.
She was not convicted of perjury. She was not indicted.
She wasn't
You're making
convicted.
a false claim.
But
You're
he said,
making a false
no.
claim.
He said, I need a referral and I'll investigate it. But he said, yes, she did lie. He concluded
Why
that.
wasn't she indicted then?
Alan,
Because he doesn't have a referral to investigate.
David's right. In fact, effectively, he said she was not fully
Then she should have been indicted, but she wasn't. There was no precedent for an indictment.
Alan, I don't know how she gets indicted when the president would effectively be indicting his own administration. I mean, he had a little bit of self-interest in making sure that the DOJ did not do that.
You had a Republican FBI head saying that there was no precedence to indict. There was not reason, and there was no intent.
Hey, Alan, let me ask you about these new reports out tonight.
Loretta Lynch's boss.
There's more news coming forward that I want to get to because we just have a short amount of time. But we are hearing reports that the FBI did want an investigation into perceived conflicts between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department, and that DOJ shut them down. Alan, I realize that you're more on the left and you're advocating her side.
Proudly.
However, isn't there a party that just says maybe it's worth checking out because it sure doesn't seem right?
I would question that you have John Cornyn, who you mentioned in the introduction, who wants to have her investigated in the middle of an election season. Gee, I wonder what the agenda here. I question the timing of all of this on behalf of people.
How about when a crime is committed?
By the way, David, you're submitting a candidate who's going to be on fraud. He's up for fraud in November, he's going to be on trial for Trump University. You should worry about that a little more.
A civil
than
suit,
Hillary
Alan?
Clinton.
A civil suit? I'm not worried about a civil suit. And by the way,
worry about that.
we both agree that Loretta Lynch won't do anything as far as prosecuting Hillary Clinton. Could it possibly be that her boss has formally endorsed Hillary Clinton? I don't know. Maybe that's a conflict
She's
there.
not
Maybe.
acting because
All right,
the
guys, good to
FBI
see you.
said there was no reason to indict. That's
Thank
why.
you, Alan. Thank you, David. Coming up next, everyone, it's not just Trump. The media has it out for conservatives as a whole. Mark Thiessen and Rich Lowry are going to join us on that. Plus, Time Magazine and others proclaiming it's meltdown time for Donald Trump, with several outlets reporting on a, quote, come to Jesus meeting with the Republican National Committee. Has the media gotten ahead of itself here? We have Howie Kurtz here tonight, along with Dr. Ben Carson, Trump campaign insider. That's next.
You know, I've run out of words to express, my shock and how completely beyond the pale that Donald Trump is.